Our story kicks off 20 years back when the divine barrier separating humans from monsters suddenly vanished. That set off a massive invasion and a war that would drag on for years. After a decade of brutal fighting, a group of warriors launched one final assault, combining magic and raw force to corner their target. In a decisive duel, the hero finally struck down the Demon King, putting an end to the long, grinding struggle. People everywhere celebrated the victory, and peace finally returned to the land. 10 years have passed since that day, and our story picks up in the present in the royal capital. At the local guild, an adventurer sits down to fill out some paperwork. At the counter, the man tells the guild master he's seriously thinking about retiring. This adventurer is Theodore Dulcame. The guild master is stunned by the news. He points out that Theodore was a key member of the hero's party, their jack of all trades. Theodore waves off the praise. He says he was really just the errand boy, a non-combatant who's still technically ranked as a rookie. The guild master Victor admits the world's changed a lot since the war. Escort and subjugation jobs are drying up since everyone's focused on labyrinths now. Theo explains that while the main party members got pensions for what they did, he's finding it harder and harder to make ends meet. At 35, he thinks back on a life of non-stop hard work since childhood, and honestly, he's just tired of fighting for scraps of work. Victor realizes there's no talking him out of it, and Theo starts thinking back to why he got into this line of work in the first place. His parents died from a plague when he was 10, and he started out doing grunt work carrying bags for other adventurers just to get by. His luck changed when a group noticed his potential during a routine conversation. That's when he found out he would been blessed with 3 distinct, useful skills. The first was appraisal, which let him spot and avoid poisonous plants out in the field. The second was crafting, which he used for everything from fixing gear to setting up safe places to camp away from monsters. And the third was tamming, which let him talk to creatures and steer clear of fights he did not need to have. Looking back, he became a real asset to the local adventurers, and that eventually led to a chance meeting with a woman who had a very specific proposal. That meeting is what got him recruited into the hero's prestigious party. Over drinks with a guild official, Theo lays out his plan to retire and move to a remote farm. Growing up in a farming village, he says, is exactly why he wants to get back to working the land. The older man's frustrated. Why would someone that talented settle for farming when the world's finally at peace and his skills are going to waste? Then the conversation takes a sharp turn. The official blurts something out and Theo nearly chokes on his drink. Victor leans in and asks if he would be interested in heading off to a brand new continent, a question that leaves the younger man speechless. This uncharted land sits far past the great demon continent, and it takes nearly a month by sea just to get there. Victor explains the territory was sealed off by a divine barrier until recently, and the guild is finally putting together its very first colonization team. He offers Theo a spot among 100 settlers, promising that whatever land he clears will be his, a fitting final adventure to cap off his career. Theo admits the idea of a quiet, self-sufficient life somewhere unknown is tempting, and that's all Victor needs to hear before he starts pushing the paperwork forward. As Victor happily signs the documents, going on about how badly they need skilled people, Theo realizes he might have just been played, but he accepts it with a resigned smile anyway. Theo commits to the job, and Victor thanks him on behalf of the Adventurers Guild, saying he's putting his full trust in him for this mission. With a firm handshake to seal the deal, Theo starts getting his affairs in order at the guild before heading out. His old party members show up to send him off, wishing him luck on this new chapter. While his former companions toast to old victories at the tavern, the time to leave finally arrives. Theo reaches the busy docks of Port Town Cagliari, ready to board a ship and start the long voyage across the sea. A month later, passing through the Demonfolk continent, a little girl runs up to greet him, calling him uncle. Theo hands her some candy and takes a moment to appreciate how peaceful this region's become compared to the chaos of a decade ago. That quiet moment gets interrupted when he spots Victor walking through the streets, and he starts wondering what the guild master is doing so far from home. Theo jokes and asks if the guy got demoted from his high-ranking post, but Victor shuts that down fast, leaving Theo puzzled about what's really going on. The armored man explains he volunteered for the expedition because he refuses to let Theo face danger on his own, though he eventually admits he really just wants to get back into adventuring now that his grandkids are grown. When Theo brings up the fact that he's 70 years old, Victor just laughs it off, reminding him that dwarves live a whole lot longer than humans do. Before becoming guild master, this veteran warrior earned titles like like Dragon Slayer, and despite his aristocratic background, he was known for being surprisingly polite. While Theo sees Victor as a true leader, someone who can bring people together, the old man stops their walk to introduce him to the rest of the crew before the ship sets sail. Victor introduces the expedition team, and Theo can tell right away that everyone gathered here looks exceptionally capable. The group's 20-strong, 15 adventurers and 3 scholars specializing in climate, geology, and demonology, and Theo introduces himself simply as a non-combatant. The moment they hear his name, the other adventurers react with shock and excitement, asking if he's really the famous jack of all trades and saying what an honor it is to meet him. The crew claims his skills are the stuff of legend, that he was once the backbone of the hero's party, and they are eager to see what he can do firsthand. Overwhelmed by requests for autographs and stories, Theo demands to know exactly what Victor told everyone, but the old man just insists the kids underestimating his own reputation. As the sun starts to set, Victor gives the order to prepare for departure, explaining that an adventurer's got to steer the ship since they cannot afford extra crew. Looking over their supplies, the group grumbles about the tight budget that crammed them onto a small boat with barely enough food and water for the trip. Theo asks how they are going to handle storage, and Victor reveals a national treasure, a magic bag lent to him by the guild. Victor explains the bag's massive capacity and its time-stopping properties let them pack 2 extra weeks of rations, something that took some serious negotiating to pull off. The old man's stunned into silence when Theo casually pulls out his own privately owned magic bag from years back, and the kid has to apologize for the surprise. Once everything's ready, Victor snaps out of his shock, checks the mast, and confirms the wind's blowing the right way to set sail. Even though Victor tells him to leave the heavy lifting to the others, Theo insists he's more comfortable pitching in as an errand hand. As the crew works the oars, Theo feels a rush of excitement at the thought of heading into totally unknown territory. With the signal given, the ship officially sets off on its journey. The vessel cuts steadily through open water, heading toward its distant destination. 2/3 of the way there, the trip's gone smoothly, not a single monster attack or storm, and the crew offers up prayers of thanks for the good winds and safe passage. Some say adventurers get religious because they face death so often, but Theo wonders out loud if it's a little early to be thanking God just yet. The wind dies down completely, leaving the ship dead in the water, and a bearded crewman notes that good luck never lasts forever. A climatologist explains this windless spell could drag on for weeks, and the crew can hardly believe how unpredictable the open ocean can be. Worry shifts fast to their supplies, since their food and water will not last if they are stuck out here that long. Realizing they are basically stranded under the blazing sun, the crew's morale starts to sink. Theo stays calm and says they can just make their own drinking water, asking someone to bring him a bucket of seawater. Once a crewman fetches it, Theo explains he can separate out the salt, using his skill to pull fresh water straight from the sea. The crew's relieved to find the water's perfectly drinkable, and just like that, dehydration's off the list of things to worry about. Theo brushes off the praise for his quick thinking, and while everyone else is celebrating, a woman nearby tells them to keep it down. The girl with glasses suddenly spots something strange in the water and lets out a shout that echoes across the deck. Falling back in shock, she points at the sea and warns everyone that something completely outrageous just showed up. The bearded man spots the massive shape too and calls Theo over to look for himself. Theo stares in stunned silence, hardly able to believe what he's seeing in the water below. A massive silhouette, over 10 meters long, is looming right beneath the surface next to their ship. Fearing the ship will not stand a chance against something aggressive, the bearded man tells Theo to brace for anything, just as a faint sound rings out. Everyone braces for impact as the massive creature starts moving straight toward the ship. Then, to everyone's surprise, a giant, gentle-looking creature with big round eyes surfaces and lets out a soft cry. Theo and the crew are left speechless. This is nowhere near the threat they would imagined. As the creature floats peacefully nearby, the crew starts wondering if they are looking at some kind of sea hippo. While some think it's actually kind of cute, the bearded man warns them not to let their guard down and calls Kelly over to safety. They recognize the woman as Mrs. Kelly, a well-known demonologist and a standout graduate of the Royal Academy. They watch the massive creature floating in the water, and it looks a whole lot like a common river hippo, despite being way out at sea. Kelly's thrilled to have stumbled onto an undiscovered species, and she starts sketching it right away, though she admits she cannot tell if it's aggressive without watching it longer. Theo points out that regular hippos are known to be violent, and Kelly agrees that's a fair concern. After weighing saying the creature's powerful jaws, its speed, and its history of attacking people. The group grows anxious, while Kelly decides to name it a sea hippo. Sensing the tension building among the crew, they turn to Victor to take charge. Theo offers to try taming the creature himself, and Victor gives him the green light. Victor thinks fast and immediately orders the crew to stand down and hold their fire while Theo uses his tamming skill. Theo reaches out his hand and focuses his energy on the sea hippo floating nearby. A bright beam of light connects Theo to the creature as he starts the tamming process right there on deck. Theo speaks straight to the sea hippo, asking what it wants from them, and the creature just looks back at him, curious. The rest of the crew watches in confusion, wondering if this thing's got some kind of specific interest in one of them. Theo realizes it's not hungry, and he does not feel any hostility coming from it, so he tells the hippo they mean it no harm. He asks why it approached the ship in the first place, but the sea hippo goes quiet for a moment, thinking it over. Eventually it answers, saying the people on the ship just looked interesting to it. Happy with that answer, Theo laughs and tells the sea hippo they are going to get along just fine. Theo lets Victor know the sea hippo's peaceful, and they have managed to avoid a fight entirely. Victor gets an idea. Since the creature's clearly strong, why not ask it to pull the ship? Theo agrees to pass along the request. Theo explains to the creature that they are in trouble, the lack of winds stopped the ship dead, and asks if it would lend them some of its strength. It turns out tamming is not about force at all. It's about communication, building an equal relationship based on give and take rather than bending a monster to your will. Theo moves on to the next step of his plan, asking the monster to work with him, while admitting to himself he will have to give up if it's not interested. He tries negotiating, offering a high-quality magic stone or some meat, but the creature turns him down every time. Starting to feel like he's failed, Theo gets frustrated, figuring you cannot ask for labor without giving something fair in return. Finally, the creature responds, asking for his magic power instead of material goods. Surprised by the request, Theo warns that agreeing would mean becoming its familiar, but the creature's dead set on its choice. He finds it a little strange, honestly, that his magic power keeps being so popular with monsters. Thinking back on how many creatures around the world have already become his familiars, he finally agrees to go through with the contract. Before starting, Theo realizes the sea hippo needs a proper name and starts turning over some options in his head. Once he's decided, he calls up a large magic circle to kick off the binding process. The surge of magic gets an immediate reaction from everyone standing nearby. Introducing himself as Theodore Dulcame, he formally grants the creature his power along with a new name, Hippolyus. He orders the creature to complete the bond and officially become his familiar. Accepting the pact, the creature acknowledges its new identity as the familiar of Theodore Dulcame. The ritual wraps up as Theo places his hand on the creature to finalize the connection. When asked if everything went okay, Theodore confirms the familiarization was a success, but then feels a strange sensation hit him. He starts to lose his balance and admits he's feeling dizzy, and a concerned companion rushes to his side. Theodore realizes the contract drained way more magic than he expected, nodding that stronger monsters always take more energy, just like the dragons he's tamed before. Looking at what seems like a pretty simple sea hippo, he starts questioning what this creature really is. Watching it float there happily, he tries to convince himself he's probably just overthinking it. Theodore eventually asks how his magic power tasted, and the creature cheerfully answers that it was delicious. He asks if the creature remembers its task, and it dives straight in and starts pushing the ship while the crew watches in total shock. The massive vessel surges forward through the water at an incredible pace. Caught off guard by the sudden speed, Theo shouts about how fast they are going while the rest of the crew scrambles to hold on. It's hard to believe a ship this size could move so fast, all thanks to the sea hippo's impressive strength. Victor praises Theo for the progress, but as the pace starts to slow, Theo asks Hippolyus if it's getting tired. Hippolyus looks back and tells Theodore to keep watching closely, then keeps right on pushing the ship. The creature's innocent, playful energy reminds him of a little kid, and he realizes just how adorable it really is. Theo cheers it on but tells it to take it easy on the speed. Instead, it accelerates even more, forcing him to yell for it to slow down. Despite the chaos, Theo feels like the trip's been going remarkably well ever since they met Hippolyus. The group finds a comfortable spot behind a windbreak to relax as the voyage continues. While Theo spends some time fishing, the creature watches curiously until he finally hooks a massive catch. Hippolyus seems pretty pleased with the haul as the ship sails calmly on toward its destination. A week later, a lookout spots something on the horizon and calls the whole crew over. Everyone gathers at the front of the ship as they they finally catch sight of land in the distance. Theo and his companions look on, a mix of excitement and relief on their faces as the shore gets closer. They have finally reached the new continent, and Theo thanks Hippolyus for getting them there safe and sound. The creature responds with a happy sound, clearly satisfied with how it all turned out. As a small boat gets lowered to the shore, Theo reflects on how well things have gone despite all the twists and turns along the way. Once they reach the shore, Theo tells Victor the real work is just getting started and to follow him, while Hippolyus gets distracted by the lush grass. The crew stands in awe of the massive landscape ahead of them, celebrating their successful arrival on the new continent. The group takes in the unique plants, minerals, and animals of the new continent as they start exploring. Victor, leading the expedition, tells everyone to calm down and stay alert for potential danger. The men get to work securing the area before using small boats to ferry the ship's cargo ashore. Victor understands why everyone's so excited, being the first humans to ever set foot here, and calls out to Theodore. Theodore's nearly knocked over when Hippolyus playfully rubs up against him while he's carrying boxes. Theodore admits Hippolyus has not left his side since they landed, and Victor notes just how attached the creatures become to him. Theo feels a protective urge toward Hippolyus, but Victor reminds him this thing's strong enough to push a mid-sized ship on its own. Realizing he's basically fallen into a parental role with the creature, Theodore decides it's time to focus on their first real task. The group talks over their mission to survey this uncharted land and how urgently they need to set up a secure base. Victor warns Theodore they need to finish a temporary base today or they will be camping out in the open, a prospect Theo is not thrilled about. Recalling some bad memories from past travels, Theodore agrees and hurries them toward a small hill near the ocean they spotted earlier. Theodore looks ahead to a future where this very spot becomes the central hub for developing the whole continent. While explaining they are building houses for the team, Theodore's caught off guard by the sudden realization that Hippolyus might need one too. Hippolyus enthusiastically agrees it wants a house, though Theo worries about the sheer amount of materials a structure that big would take. Victor points out just how overprotective Theo's being, but allows the extra build anyway since the creatures pulled its weight. Victor reassures him not to stress about the logistics when it comes to setting up their base of operations. The team starts felling trees, counting on Theodore's skills to lead the construction. Victor asks Theodore to check if the trees nearby are actually suitable for building materials. Theodore uses his appraisal skill and confirms the timber's impeccable, both in hardness and moisture content. Victor notes that with a crew this experienced, they are basically as efficient as professional lumberjacks. In the forest, a worker shouts as a massive tree starts to fall, nodding that building enough houses for 20 people is going to take a ton of labor. Doing the math at 4 people per house, the group figures they need 5 houses plus 1 extra building, a job the bearded man says will eat up a lot of time just gathering materials. Watching the discussion, the little creature wanders over to Theodore and asks if something's bothering him. Theodore admits it's not a huge crisis, but everyone's going to have to rough it until they secure enough wood, and the creature offers to help. As it heads toward the trees, the bearded man asks what it thinks it's doing, but Theodore stays calm, figuring it's not about to go on a rampage. The workers laugh at the idea. Since it cannot exactly hold an axe, how's it supposed to help with logging? Then the creature suddenly manifests a pair of large, glowing horns, leaving Theodore and the old knight completely stunned. Theodore admits he's never seen anything like it as the creature squares up in front of a massive tree trunk. On closer inspection, it's clear the horns are not made of bone at all. They are pure concentrated magic. With a powerful surge, the creature rams the trunk, using those magical horns to force the massive tree right over. The tree's completely uprooted, crashing down to the forest floor as Theodore watches the show of strength from a distance. Theodore realizes it's using its magic to both uproot and push the trees down, cutting the need for tools entirely. As more trees fall, the workers keep their distance, and soon a massive pile of logs sits ready in the clearing. The bearded man's stunned they gathered all the wood they needed in a single day, just as Kelly shows up to investigate the creature. Kelly, ever the demonologist, confidently declares that this thing is, without a doubt, a type of dragon. That revelation leaves Theodore and the old knight in shock, struggling to connect the word dragon with their small companion. Theodore points at the cute little creature, asking if she's sure, and Kelly admits she gets why he's skeptical. Kelly explains her theories based on body structure and the type of magic used, pegging it specifically as a kind of earth dragon, while Theo thinks back on how he tamed it. When Theodore mentions the magic energy spent during the taming was on par with a high-ranking dragon, Kelly practically shouts that he should have told her sooner. Theodore worries about how the others will take the news, and the bearded man agrees people might panic once they find out what this creature really is. The group watches Kelly get totally fixated on her notes, and honestly, right now she's the one they are most worried about. Despite the odd behavior, they respect her expertise as she breaks down the creature's diet and biology, confirming it's carnivorous. She points out Hippolyus is still pretty young compared to fully grown dragons. After learning how to tell adult dragons apart by the shape of their tails, Theo pets the creature and says he understands. Theo thanks the scholar for her help and asks her to share whatever else she finds, a request that gets a surprisingly intense reaction. With a genuinely terrifying look on her face, Kelly demands he tell her first every single time he learns something new about monsters. Moving on to the task at hand, the group wraps up their survey and agrees the land's perfect for setting up a base. Victor points out the benefits of the spot: good drainage, close to the river, plenty of room to grow. With materials gathered and the land finalized, Theo feels good about how far they have come thanks to everyone's hard work. Theo insists on starting construction right away, even when Victor suggests he take a break first. He centers himself, explaining that the mental image he's holding onto is the most important part of the whole process. He stresses the need for speed, warning that the image in his head will start to fade if he hesitates too long. The crafting skill depends on a clear picture of the finished product, and losing focus for even a second can throw the whole result out of sync. Theo activates his ability, processing all the materials at once while the others watch the logs start to transform. Under his power, the raw wood instantly reshapes into sturdy, construction-ready timber. Following the blueprint in his head, he simultaneously turns stone into glass and rock into metal fittings. With one final surge of power, an entire building appears instantly right before their eyes. The onlookers are left completely speechless by the sheer scale and speed of it all. The group can barely process it. A finished house is standing where there was nothing just 10 minutes ago. One of the men shouts out in shock as the reality of what just happened finally sinks in. Inside the new house, the men are stunned to find private rooms and glass windows, a place that rivals an aristocratic mansion despite being built on undeveloped land. The group admits they had no idea what to expect from an unexplored continent, but with Theo around, it feels like they can handle just about anything. Fueled by his own motivation, Theo brushes off Victor's pleas to rest and knocks out several more houses in rapid succession. In a remarkably short time, the entire base is officially finished, sturdy buildings standing ready. Theo's relieved the whole thing worked out, and Victor, who expected the work to take days, notices one house has a strangely shaped door. Suddenly, a heavy thud echoes through the area as the carcass of a large animal hits the ground. Theo and Victor are caught off guard to see a wild boar dragged in by their dragon companion. Theodore realizes Hippolyus went off hunting on its own and asks the creature to confirm. Hippolyus admits it went hunting because it figured Theodore would be starving after all that construction work. Touched by the gesture, Theo gently pets Hippolyus and thanks it, confirming the construction's finally done. Theo leads the creature toward one of the buildings and encourages it to try opening the door. Theo explains he designed a special insulated door it can open with its mouth so it can come and go easily and stay warm. Overjoyed by the thoughtful gift, the dragon tackles Theodore in an enthusiastic hug that leaves him dizzy from the impact. The creature nuzzles up against him, showing just how happy and grateful it is for its own personalized home. With a warm smile, Theodore strokes its head and tells it that it was his pleasure. As night falls, the whole group gathers around a big campfire in the middle of their new base to celebrate. Victor raises a toast to everyone's hard work, relieved they reached this milestone without a single injury. Everyone digs into a feast of boar meat while Theo realizes Hippolyus clearly knows how to hunt down the best prey for the team. With the base fully up and running, the scholars in the group can hardly wait to start their full-scale expedition. The group spots volcanic rock formations and figures the nearby mountains probably a volcano, which gets Kelly excited to study the local ecosystem before they run into any monsters. Theo notes that her scholarly instincts are a little unusual and asks what she's been eating all day. Looking back at him, Kelly reveals she's been eating internal organs. When Theo asks if wild boar organs actually taste good, Kelly says the flavor's bitter and sharp but insists knowing the taste matters for monster research, especially since it's not poisonous. She offers some to Theo for his own academic edification, but he quickly declines while Hippolyus reacts with a frightened yelp nearby. After a long day, they head back to a house and Theo tells Hippolyus to get some rest. He says good good night, promising to see the creature tomorrow, but Hippolyus grabs onto his clothes to keep him from leaving. Hippolyus looks up and asks if they can sleep together, leaving Theo speechless. Kelly notes Hippolyus is still just a young child, and a memory surfaces, a small boy crying out for his parents. That same loneliness shows up in the image of a creature sitting alone by the vast ocean. Theodore gives in and agrees to stay, admitting the creature's put in more than enough hard work today. Hippolyus lets out a happy shout and climbs right onto his back. Theodore mentions he's still got a few things to take care of before bed, only to find the creature's already fast asleep. Seeing how peaceful his companion looks, Theo pets it and admits he's pretty tired himself. He decides it's probably best to get some sleep too. Theodore settles in beside his companion, resolving to keep putting in the effort once morning comes. Silence settles over the mountainside and the small settlement as the night deepens. That peace gets broken when a heavy footstep startles a grasshopper into flight. A wild girl with animal features steps out of the trees alongside a large wolf, letting out a low growl. Theodore bolts upright in the dark house, having heard a suspicious noise outside. Dark shapes start prowling through the space between the settlement's houses. A wild animal spotted chewing on a discarded bone near the settlement. Theo notices it's picking through leftovers from last night's feast right in the middle of their base. Remembering everyone was too tipsy to clean up, he figures he needs to move the animal along before this becomes a regular thing, but first he grabs a blanket. He carefully drapes it over the sleeping creature so it does not catch a cold. Trying to stay quiet so he does not wake Hippolyus, Theo starts moving toward the intruders. Peeking out from behind a wall, he watches from a distance, at first assuming it's just a common wild dog. His expression changes fast when he spots the magic coating its body. This is actually a demon wolf. He knows these are seriously powerful, agile monsters, ones that can be lethal even to veteran adventurers when they hunt in packs. He spots another wolf about the same size nearby, both only about half the height of a full-grown wolf, and wonders why such a proud species is scavenging for food with its cubs in tow. Sensing something's off, he decides he cannot just leave them to fend for themselves. Stepping out into the open, he calls out to the animal and asks if they can talk for a second. Startled by his sudden appearance, the creature spins around in surprise. He offers a friendly smile and apologizes for the interruption, insisting he's not an enemy, but the wolf growls and gets ready to bolt. As he reaches his hand out, the creatures instinctively turn to run. He calls for them to wait and accidentally triggers his tamming skill, immediately worried about what he's just done. One of the wolves suddenly stops dead in its tracks, looking back at him in confusion. He's shocked his tamming skill did not work on the others who would already fled, since it's normally effective on pretty much any monster. Realizing it only worked on this one, he starts to wonder if it's actually a different kind of creature than the rest. Since the rest of the pack's long gone, he decides to focus on the one that's still here. Kneeling down to its level, he repeats that he's not an enemy and asks what it's doing out here. Theo realizes the creature's hunger explains its condition, and he notices just how much weight it's lost. He asks if the rest of the herd's gone, if something terrible happened to them. The creature reveals a bear attacked them, leaving Theo in shock. It explains the predator showed up recently and killed off all its siblings and pack members. Theo realizes no ordinary bear could take down a whole pack of demon wolves, so it's got to be something else. He identifies the threat as a demon bear, a far more dangerous creature. This vicious thing attacked the pack even though wolves are not exactly appetizing, which just proves how strong it is. The creature mentions its sister, who's clumsy and not much of a hunter but managed to get away earlier. It insists on leaving right away to find and protect her, since she's waiting for it. Theo falls silent for a moment before calling out to the creature with a serious look on his face. He asks it straight up to join him and his group instead of going it alone. The creature's stunned by the offer, and Theo explains he cannot stand seeing anyone abandoned and starving, no matter what species they are. He promises a steady supply of food for both it and its sister, saying he values anyone who looks out for their friends. Theo proposes a formal contract, offering a peaceful life and protection in exchange for the creature following his lead. It agrees to the terms, though it gets a little anxious when Theo decides to name it Shiro for its white fur. It settles onto the ground and asks if they are going to do the contract ceremony right now. Theodore Dulcame starts the ritual, granting his power along with the name Shiro to make the creature his familiar. Suddenly, the creature lets out a loud roar as magical energy surges through its body. Shiro lunges forward with tremendous force as the contract circle glows brightly under Theo's hand. The sudden, violent reaction catches Theo completely off guard, and he shouts in surprise. Something rams into him, and he realizes realizes it's the same wolf that fled from him earlier. Getting his footing back, he finds himself facing down two wolves and a growling child. The feral girl lets out a fierce roar and lunges at him with predatory intensity. She holds her ground, ears and tail unmistakably wolf-like, staying hostile and ready to fight. Stunned by her appearance, Theo questions what kind of kid she even is, taking in her animal features. He notes he's never come across a species like this before, as she keeps growling, gearing up for another attack. Trying to defuse things, Theo tells her to calm down, insists he's not an enemy, and tries using his tamming skill. The tamming attempt fails completely, proving she's no monster, and Theo has to dodge as she lunges at him again. He realizes he's finally met a human native to this continent, while the girl keeps snarling from a defensive crouch. A large wolf lets out a loud bark and the girl jumps in surprise, looking back at her companion. The girl turns to Shiro, who seems to be talking her down, and Theo wonders if it's trying to talk her out of fighting. Sensing the tension drop, Theo notes she's calmed down and repeats his reassurance that he's not a threat. After asking Shiro if she's really its sister, Theo understands she was found as a baby and raised as part of the wolf pack. Realizing they will not get anywhere at this rate, Theo watches the girl stay wary and on guard. He tells her he admires her caution, but warns he will have his own concerns if she keeps trespassing on his base. Theo mentions the perks of his civilization and reaches into his gear, making the girl tense up. He pulls a steaming roasted boar steak out of his magic bag, and her eyes go wide with excitement. Seeing the bribes working, Theo sets the plate down and tells her she's free to eat. Her stomach growls loudly and she moves toward the food, but suddenly freezes as the wolf approaches. The wolf devours the steak in one bite, leaving the girl in total shock while Theo pulls out another plate. While the wolf finishes its meal, the wild girl watches on with excitement. She starts devouring her own meat, and Theo realizes she would just been waiting for Shiro to test it for poison first. Driven by hunger, she lunges so hard he has to warn her not to accidentally bite his hand. After clearing several plates, both girl and wolf lie back satisfied, and Theo figures they have finally had their fill. When he asks if she's full, she admits her belly's satisfied, even though she's still a bit wary of him. Theo's instantly shocked to realize she can actually understand him, though she clarifies she only understands a little. He's amazed that someone raised by wolves on this continent can speak their language at all. It turns out that's because speech is a gift from the god of speech, granted to anyone considered a person, no matter their background. Theo offers a quick prayer of thanks for that blessing, while the girl watches him with a puzzled look. The girl finally apologizes for her earlier hostility, admitting she thought he was attacking the wolf. Understanding why the misunderstanding happened, Theo waves off the apology, chalking it up to a simple mix-up. He explains that instead of saying tame, he told the wolf he wanted to be friends, and extends the same offer to her. The offer immediately grabs her attention the moment she hears the part about sharing food. Theo lists the perks of teaming up, plenty of meals, and a warm place to sleep, and she turns to consult with the wolf. After a brief exchange with her companion, she confirms she's on board with the plan. Hugging the wolf tight, she happily announces they are going to be friends. Theo smiles and welcomes them, saying he's looking forward to working together on this new continent. He proudly declares the two of them are his very first friends here in this land. Remembering his original goal, he asks if they can go ahead with the tamming process, which leaves the girl confused. He clarifies he just wants to give the wolf a proper name to make their friendship official. The girl's ecstatic when Theo suggests naming the wolf Shiro, and she immediately urges him to move to the next step. As she leans in toward the wolf, a massive burst of light erupts, swallowing them both. Theo and the girl are both left stunned, staring at each other in the aftermath of the flash. Theo feels a sudden surge of magic power and uses his appraisal skill to check it out, while the girl remains puzzled by the strange light. He quickly realizes a magical connection's just been formed between the two of them. After calming her down, Theo explains that, surprisingly, she's officially tamed Shiro herself. He struggles to find a simple way to explain the mechanics of the bond to the confused pair. He explains that while tamming usually involves subduing a monster with magic, it looks like she and Shiro just became the best of friends instead. While the girl's overjoyed to be called a good friend, Theo privately worries he might have botched that explanation a little. He's amazed she pulled off a tamming skill without even chanting, guessing she must be some kind of natural, before realizing she does not actually have a name. The girl's startled to realize she never had a name at all, so Theo kindly offers to give her one. After thinking it over, he decides to call her Theo. He explains the name belonged to a legendary tamer from old folktales, and she quietly takes it in. Theo's delighted with the name and excitedly announces it to Shiro. Watching them play, Theo reflects on how the bonds of family and friendship stay the same, even on a brand new continent. Nodding it's getting late, he offers to walk her to somewhere she can sleep, reaching out his hand to reassure her everything's going to be okay. Despite the peaceful moment, one specific detail keeps nagging at him. He remembers the mention of a ferocious bear that wiped out the wolf pack and decides he has to deal with it to protect their base. He stays resolved to eliminate the threat as soon as he can, for the sake of keeping his peaceful, easy life intact. As he rests, a mysterious voice keeps calling his name, Theodore, stirring him from a moment of deep unease. Theo looks down at a creature that seems oddly nervous, staring back at him. Growing frantic, Hippolytus calls out to warn him someone else is in the room. Theodore is confused until he looks over and spots the wolf girl and her companion sleeping soundly on the floor. Hippolytus urges him to be careful, but Theo calmly tells it not to worry, reaching out to wake the pair for the morning. Theodore explains to the startled Hippolytus that he's the one who brought these two into the house the night before. The newcomers respond with aggressive growls and defensive posturing, and Theo lets out a frustrated sigh dealing with the sudden commotion. When Hippolytus asks if these are new friends, Theo smiles and confirms they officially joined the group yesterday. The two are introduced to the group as a girl named Theo and her companion Shiro. Theodore introduces Hippolytus as a big but friendly ally, reminding it to be more careful since the two arrived while it was asleep. Theo looks up at the massive creature, curiously struggling to pronounce Hippolytus correctly. She eventually crawls forward to sniff it, until the two touch noses in a quiet moment of mutual curiosity. Theo notes that's basically a wolf's greeting, surprised the newcomers are not scared, but the peace breaks when Hippolytus suddenly cries out. Shiro had moved around back to sniff Hippolytus, leaving the big creature visibly uncomfortable and complaining loudly. Theo tells Hippolytus it will just have to put up with it, since that's also a standard wolf greeting as their second day on the continent begins. Outside in the settlement, the bearded man gathers everyone to announce their first official breakfast in this new land. The spread includes local bird eggs and fruit, plus bread they brought along on the journey. While everyone else enjoys the local food, the bearded man turns to Theo and asks him to explain the kids he found. Theodore explains they were the source of the noise from the night before, and points out that everyone else just left him to handle it alone. The bearded man's taken aback and questions whether this girl, Theo, is actually human. Theodore confirms she's human despite her unusual features, adding she can speak and is actually a tamer, with Shiro as her familiar. It's clear this girl's an exceptionally talented tamer, one who manages to tame creatures completely by instinct without even needing to chant. Theo asks the group if Theo and Shiro can join their ranks, and the bearded man and the others give it their enthusiastic approval. After hearing that everyone trusts his judgment given everything he's been through, Theo gets ready to introduce the newcomers to the rest of his friends. Kelly introduces herself with overwhelming intensity, and Theo and Shiro recoil in fear at her sudden approach. Theo tells Kelly to calm down since her intensity's freaking them out, but she insists she's just trying to be friendly. Kelly explains her excitement comes from the fact that both Theo and Shiro appear to be entirely new species, despite Theo initially thinking the wolf was just a common demon wolf. Kelly starts a close physical inspection to verify the creature's origins, while the others watch her go to work. Examining the fur down to the roots, Kelly confirms it matches the traits of a rare species known as the white demon wolf. She points out the specific muzzle length and other features suggest Shiro's actually a subspecies native to this new continent. Theo's shocked by the news, since he would only ever heard of the white demon wolf as a legendary, higher form of an already powerful monster. Kelly then brings up a troubling report about a herd wiped out by an aggressive demon bear that specifically hunts these wolves. Victor startles Kelly by appearing out of nowhere, and Theo admits he's already been thinking about that threat himself. Victor tries to put things in perspective, nodding that even with the base established, they have still got to prepare for what's ahead. Theo agrees they need to build a stable foundation for themselves instead of just relying on what they can scavenge from nature. The group settles on food as their top concern for the settlement's long-term survival and stability. Victor lays out food, water, and safety as the top three priorities, suggesting they start with developing the fields. He adds that a functional well's just as urgent to secure their water supply as the base grows. Still, the looming threat of that powerful monster remains a major obstacle to living in peace and getting anything done. As Victor starts asking about defense equipment, Theo cuts in, insisting there's something even more urgent to build first. To his companion's complete confusion, soon, Theo declares their most urgent priority is actually a bath. Theo's companion is stunned by the suggestion, then points out how rough everyone's looking as the reason it's actually necessary. Looking at the wolf and Theo notes their rough, nomadic life and hopes to bring back the beautiful fur they inherited from their father. He explains fleas and ticks need to go immediately to prevent infection, but the river's just too cold for the animals to handle. Since the river's out, Theo proposes digging a well at the base and asks the rest of the group to scout the area in the meantime. He assures everyone he can handle the work himself with his magic bag and the kids, while acknowledging Victor knows the local geography best. Having a dragon like Hippolytus around is a powerful deterrent all on its own, keeping even dangerous demon bears away from the base. Theo expresses confidence in Victor and the rest of the team to handle any trouble, while the wolf girl stays quiet and watchful. The bearded man agrees to lead the search near the base and tells Theo to call for help if anything comes up during the well construction. Getting ready to work, Theo starts clearing out his magic bag to make room for the materials he will need for the well. Theo approaches with a worried look and warns him there's a very strong, dangerous bear lurking nearby. She looks at him with genuine worry, admitting she's deeply anxious about the potential threat. That fear traces back to the memory of Theo's family, lost to the dangers of the wild. To ease her mind, Theo encourages her to trust in Hippolytus and think of the dragon as a protective part of their own family. Hippolytus steps forward confidently, promising Theo that any threats will be dealt with. Hearing that reassurance brings a look of relief to Theo's face, and Theo watches the two bond. Theo happily hugs the dragon, finally feeling a sense of security alongside her wolf companion. With everyone ready to go, Theo calls the group to start their mission, but Theo interrupts with a sudden question. It turns out neither Theo nor Shiro have any idea what a bath actually is, leaving Theo momentarily speechless. He patiently explains it's a warm, comfortable place designed specifically for cleaning yourself up. After hearing it also relieves fatigue, Theo and Shiro get incredibly excited, though Theo tells them not to get ahead of themselves. To get ready for the bath, Theo explains they first need to gather a serious amount of stones. He leads the group toward the river to start searching for materials to build the well. With the base finished on day 1, the team turns its attention to the next objective Theo's proposed. Since a bath needs a steady water supply, building a functional well is the essential first step. Constructing a deep well takes a massive quantity of stones to properly reinforce the structure. With the mission clear, the group heads out to collect stones, Hippolytus tagging along enthusiastically. As they reach the water, Hippolytus immediately starts splashing around, drawing a laugh out of Theo. Theo reminds the dragon they are not here to play, though it seems way too distracted by the river to care. Noticing Theo and Shiro's shocked expressions, Theo realizes something's off about how they are reacting to the water. Theo clings to Shiro in fear, admitting the water's terrifying, and Theo starts wondering if they are hydrophobic. She explains that getting caught in the rain always meant being cold and exhausted, and that's left her with a real fear of water. To ease her worries, Theo clarifies that Hippolytus is naturally a sea creature and is perfectly safe in its element. He pulls out a towel and shows them how to dry off right after being in the water to stay warm. Reassured she will not be left cold and soaked, Theo takes in his explanation and tries to push past her fear. Despite the encouragement, Theo notices her hesitation and realizes overcoming trauma like this is going to take some time. Kelly walks over and comments on how fascinating the dragon's swimming style is and notices Theo looking pretty satisfied with himself. Then Theo realizes the current riverbank only has small pebbles, nowhere near enough for building a well. He decides they should head further upstream for bigger rocks, even though Hippolytus seems to have lost a bit of its earlier energy. As they move on, Theo and Shiro perk back up, enjoying their time alongside the dragon. Watching the scene, Kelly figures kids just bond easier, or maybe it's just how wolves are wired. Wolves are pack animals that need a leader with a clear vision to keep things in order, and Theo asks if Theo's orders come from that kind of knowledge, which he humbly brushes off as a compliment. Since a demon bear wiped out Theo's pack half a month ago, only 2 of them managed to survive. Theo weighs his responsibility to keep everyone happy as their leader, but doubts creep in, given his background's just a simple errand hand, nothing like a hero. He thinks back on the image of a heroic team, everyone united and smiling together, a picture that still inspires him. Deciding to focus on making everyone feel secure instead of dwelling on his own status, Theo's about to move forward when someone suddenly calls his name. Coming across a small creature in the woods, the group tries to guide it toward a specific spot. Theo explains demands that the strongest one has to mark their territory, but a flustered Theo admits his limits and refuses to take part in that kind of display. Theo tells Kelly to keep quiet, noting that Theo's unusual scent might be alarming the local wildlife, right before a loud scream cuts through the forest. Theo collapses from exhaustion after the whole ordeal, and Theo blames it on all his screaming during the trip. The group finally reaches a waterfall, where Theo's hopping to find some high-quality stones. Theo immediately points out a massive boulder, but Theo has to pass. It's way too heavy for him to lift. He explains that magic bags can carry a lot of weight, but they have still got strict physical limits, so oversized stuff just will not fit. He asks Theo and Shiro to hunt for smaller stones of a specific size instead, brushing off her suggestion to go bigger. Preferring to let the kids play rather than work, Theo's protective streak earns him the label of overprotective from his companion. Theo admits he probably could not handle heavy loads himself anyway, right as Hippolytus calls out, asking his opinion on something it's found. An enormous rock looms over the landscape, dwarfing everything nearby. Theo immediately shoots down the idea, asking how they would possibly get something that huge back to base. Back at camp, the team discusses prioritizing an expedition to map the surrounding area and find the end of the valley. The planning session gets interrupted by a series of heavy thuds as the guards spot something massive and unknown closing in. The giant boulder gets delivered right to the entrance of the building, leaving everyone at base completely stunned. Victor's shocked to see a massive rock moving on its own, and Theo apologizes for startling him, quickly explaining the situation. Looking at the boulder now sitting near the base, Victor admits he's surprised something this heavy made it all this way. As Hippolytus rests from the effort, Theo remarks on just how extraordinary its magic horn and strength are to pierce a rock like that. She keeps marveling at the power it took to carry the boulder, realizing Hippolytus' abilities go way beyond a normal dragon. Theo shudders at the thought of ever facing power like that as an enemy right before someone calls out his name. Theo praises his companions for their help and asks Theo if they can finally use the materials to build the well. Victor agrees a well's essential since everyone needs water, while Theo continues comforting Theo. Just hearing about large amounts of water triggers a traumatic memory for her, leaving her visibly shaken. Theo quickly moves to calm the panicked Theo, reassuring her there's nothing to fear despite her terror of the water. Theo gently tells Theo he wants her to learn all kinds of new things, including basics like using a fork and knife. He tells her that gaining knowledge is the best way to overcome fear, though she's still a little confused by that. Theo gets ready to build the well, explaining they need to dig a deep shaft all the way down to the groundwater. Focusing his energy, he places his hand over the ground to begin the construction. Using his magic, Theo starts compacting the soil and cutting through solid rock to shape the inside of the shaft. He reinforces the outer surfaces with stone and finishes it off with metal brought over from the continent. Watching it all come together, Theo's left completely speechless and amazed. The group stands before the finished well and pump, and Theo's surprised to learn this is what a well actually looks like. Theo nearly tumbles into the deep hole while poking around, and Theo grabs her, sternly telling her never to do that again. Theo and Victor agree to keep the lid on the well closed at all times to avoid any accidents down the line. While the others admire the craftsmanship, Theo turns his attention back to Theo to show her how it works. Theo shows Theo how to push the mechanical handle on the stone structure. She grips the lever with both hands and starts pumping away while Hippolytus watches nearby. He explains he designed the pump to be light enough for a kid to operate, and he's already primed the system. As he talks to the bearded man, Theo's steady pumping finally gets water trickling out of the pipe. Then a massive gush of water bursts out of the spout and soaks Theo while she keeps working the lever with everything she's got. She and Shiro stare in shock at the sudden flow, marveling that it's actually real water. She admires the beauty of the spray as a rainbow forms, and Theo notices she seems totally fine with water as long as she's the one in control of it. Theo promises to build a big bath that will use plenty of water, and Theo excitedly demands he finish it as fast as possible. He playfully pats her head, then suddenly collapses from exhaustion, admitting he's been working since early morning and desperately needs to eat lunch. A woman with a dark expression looms over the frightened group, promising with an unsettling smile that she will not let anything bad happen to them. A loud cry echoes across the distant mountain range. Later, Theo sits with his companions enjoying a meal, remarking that the food on this new continent's surprisingly good compared to back home. He jokes about how he surprised everyone earlier by passing out from sheer exhaustion. Hippolytus tearfully complains about being overwhelmed by just how many fish fish it ran into. Theo worries he still smells like fish, a fact Kelly confirms is not just his imagination, all while he tries to comfort the distraught Hippolytus. Kelly stares intensely at Theo and the others while they eat, making everyone feel extremely uneasy. When Theo asks her to back off and give them a break, she refuses, insisting observing food habits is critical to understanding an organism's ecology. Realizing she's not going to budge, Theo figures they are in for a lot more intense study sessions like this down the road. He turns his attention back to Theo and notices with interest that she's starting to eat with her hands. She admits using a fork still tricky, but she's trying her best, which fills Theo with pride at her progress. To reward her hard work, he announces he's going to finally build the project he promised that very day. He pictures a grand bath with a fountain, somewhere they can all relax together once it's built. Theo thinks over how the camp's coming along, and a companion asks if building the bathhouse has been tough, noting how well everyone seems to be getting along. He explains the building itself is not the hard part, the real challenge is setting up a steady water supply. As he considers the space needed to boil water, Theo suggests a magical tool, and it hits him that a dedicated heating device would just be too bulky. Remembering Victor might have something useful for that, Theo turns to consult him, only to find he's already slipped away. A young man carrying supplies tells him Victor just left to scout for farmland, and Theo remarks on how much work this guy's got on his plate. The young man eagerly offers to track Victor down, starstruck by being near a member of the hero's party, but Theo hesitates since nobody knows where Victor went until Theo and Shiro step up. Theo and Shiro confidently volunteer to find him, and Theo cannot help but find their enthusiasm kind of endearing. When Theo asks if Theo usually rides Shiro, she instead hands a rope to the young volunteer and tells him to grab on. Before anyone can react, Shiro takes off at full speed, dragging the poor guy behind them across the terrain. Theo watches the dust trail and realizes he needs to teach Theo about human physical limits, while the young man struggles to keep up. Not wanting to waste time waiting for them to return, Theo shifts his focus to gathering the rest of the construction materials. He surveys the area near the well to finalize the bathhouse's location and gets as much of the internal structure done as he can. He recalls trying to get everyone's input earlier and getting overwhelmed by all the different requests, everything from scented water to specialized grooming areas. Given their limited materials and space, he narrows things down to find one common thread among all the competing ideas. He ultimately settles on a large communal bathtub as the perfect solution, something that brings everyone together in one shared space. With the washroom layout and a simple septic tank planned out, Theo feels confident construction's nearly wrapped up. He looks toward the horizon, expecting the scouting party back any minute, and spots a hand waving in the distance. As evening sets in, Theo takes a quiet moment to rest and chat with Hippolytus, who responds with a calm acknowledgement. The day ends on a peaceful note as Theo and Shiro drift off to sleep together after a tiring day. Theo gently pets Shiro, nodding they are both completely worn out after playing through the whole previous night. Theo looks over his sleeping companions, wondering if this is just normal kid behavior, glad to see them resting so freely before he wakes them for the day. Theo wakes up with a wide, cheerful grin. Overwhelmed by how adorable they are, Theo tries to keep his composure and reminds them to get ready for breakfast. Reflecting on their third day here, Theo hears heavy footsteps approaching the room. A young woman bursts through the door, urgently calling out for him. Startled by her entrance, Theo immediately apologizes for being late to breakfast, but Carrie tells him to forget about that. Carrie explains with real urgency that several people have suddenly fallen ill. Theo's shocked when she reveals the likely cause is some kind of poison. In a nearby room, healers are working frantically, using magic to stabilize patients confined to their beds. One healer confirms it's poison, but is frustrated their curative spells are not doing a thing. As the patients keep struggling, Carrie arrives at the medical ward, announcing she's brought Theo to help. Carrie asks for a status update, but the healer admits they have had zero luck. The poison neutralizing magic just is not working. Theo questions why the standard cure is failing and asks for a full rundown of the victim's symptoms. The healer describes fever and vomiting, while Carrie notes all 7 patients worked together yesterday and likely ate something contaminated. Theo trusts her read on it since her expertise as a monsterologist makes her a solid authority here. Carrie reveals she's already gathered samples of everything the workers ate yesterday and asks Theo to find the culprit. Theo thanks her for moving so fast and gets started inspecting the food right away. Using his appraisal skill, Theo starts checking through the various items laid out in front of him. His expression expression shifts quickly to alarm as his ability reveals something unexpected. Theo zeroes in on a specific bunch of berries, and Carrie mentions the workers pick them along the way, probably snacking as they work. Theo examines the berries and notes they were common back in the old world, but Carrie explains she's eaten them her whole life. Theo drops a bombshell, revealing these fruits are actually poisonous, the direct cause of everyone's trouble. The group cannot believe it. The fruit looks identical to a variety they know safe, and prudent adventurers would not have eaten them otherwise. He agrees that's a fair point, but explains that despite looking normal, something about the soil or water here caused these to develop a weak toxin. After hearing it's only a weak toxin, Theo asks how many each person ate and learns it ranged from 3 to 10 berries a person. He reassures everyone a dose that small is not fatal, and they should recover in a few days as long as they drink plenty of water. While the others feel relieved, Carrie turns serious, telling Theo there's one particularly severe case they still need to deal with. They look toward an elderly man with a long beard, Victor, lying in bed looking far worse than everyone else. Theo calls out to him, but Victor's unresponsive, running a high fever despite eating about the same amount of fruit as everyone else. The elf notes Victor usually has more stamina than adventurers half his age, though Carrie adds he's been looking unusually pale lately. Theo realizes Victor's been working non-stop since they boarded the ship, and that overwork's clearly left his body way weaker against the toxin. Victor groans and briefly comes to, and Theo rushes to his side, telling him not to push himself any further. Victor apologizes for being seen this week, but Theo tells him it's fine and urges him to just focus on resting. Theo remarks that this new world's more dangerous than they thought, and vows to appraise any new food from now on, which Victor weakly agrees with. Victor worries about adding to Theo's workload before drifting back into a deep sleep, and Theo starts fearing the worst given how bad he's getting. Theo asks the others to keep watch over the sick while he heads out, declaring he's going to find an antidote right now. Stepping outside, Theo finds his companions waiting, and Theo asks if Victor's going to be okay. He admits the situation's urgent and uncertain, but then it hits him there might be a way to help the old man fast. Theo asks Fio and Shiro if they know the area well enough to find any medicinal plants or herbs nearby. Fio gets it right away and points toward a nearby mountain, Shiro barking in agreement, showing him exactly where to look. After watching Shiro recover just from eating the plants, Theo offers to gather more, but Fio suddenly hesitates. She warns him there's a bear in the area, which immediately puts him on edge. He asks if the medicinal plants are in the same territory as the bear, and she confirms it with a silent nod. Theo realizes the dire bear responsible for wiping out Fio's entire pack is currently occupying that exact spot. Knowing this thing beat the strongest wolves and is feared even by Carrie, he admits to himself he cannot take it on alone. He acknowledges his non-combat role makes it impossible to stop the beast by himself and turns to Hippolytus for help. Theo apologizes for the danger, but asks Hippolytus if it's willing to come along. He explains he needs to help Victor and cannot do it without backup, and Hippolytus replies it's no trouble at all. Hippolytus reaffirms it wants to go, while Theo stays kneeling there on the wooden floor. It adds that the goal's also about helping the rest of the wolf pack. Encouraged by the support, Theo's caught off guard when Fio suddenly announces she's coming too. He's shocked by her decision, but she and Shiro stand firm, ready to ignore the danger of the bear. Theo adds that they trust him and do not want to lose any more friends, leaving him feeling guilty for putting them through all this. He finally accepts their help finding the medicine, but warns they will leave the second things get too dangerous. With the plan set, he heads out but stops first to check on the room where the others are tending to the sick. He calls out to Carrie, asking if she really believes a proper antidote can be found. He tells her he should have a workable plan, but wants to show her something first. Standing outside a wooden building, he tells her to put all the patients to bed inside this new facility. He explains it's equipped with a toilet for everyone to use, leaving Carrie completely shocked he built the whole structure just now. After apologizing for the sudden move, he grips his gear and reaffirms his resolve to get Victor the medicine as fast as possible. Theo tells Fio they will be heading straight into the dire bear's territory. She questions if he's lost his mind given how dangerous that is, but he explains it's the only place the medicine can be found. He emphasizes they are both after the same thing, doing everything they can for Victor. Theo promises they will retreat the moment things get real, and Fio agrees they need to set out right away. She warns him not to take the dire bear lightly, since it's completely unpredictable, and he assures her he will not. Back in the sick room, a scholar laments how little he knows about this land, while an elf offers to help help Carrie tend to the sick since they are short-staffed. Carrie watches the distant mountain with worry, silently hopping for their safety. Theo tells his companions to flee immediately, no hesitation, if they feel threatened or anything goes wrong. He vows to do whatever it takes to keep the people he's protecting safe. With their resolve set, the group heads into the forest toward the mountain.